And welcome to Leaders Having Lunch, a show that talks with leaders to find out what makes leaders so successful. And I'm your host, Jeff Conroy. And today we get a special treat. We're going to actually speak with my sister, Jenni Galloway, who serves as supervisor for Umatilla County, Oregon's care program that works with families to find resources throughout the county. And their whole premise is built upon resources, relationship, and customer service. Hi, Jenni. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am outstanding. I am so glad you decided to join me today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm glad I didn't pick on you too much as a older siblings, that you're willing to do these fun things with me.
Yes. That's a whole other conversation.
I appreciate that. We'll keep that for a whole different kind of show.
Yes.
You and I have talked extensively about leadership in the past few years, and I know you've got a staff that you deal with. And I'm also familiar with the population you're working with. How do you use your leadership skills with your staff, and what kind of background do you bring to the table to work with your staff?
Well, I've worked with the county for 25 years, and I've done several leadership type roles before that. I worked at the juvenile department and mental health, so it's usually been working with people in general anyway. So a lot of the techniques that I use with clients came actually very naturally when it came to becoming a supervisor, because it's basically the way you meet people where they're at. You set an expectation. You talk about the passion and the customer service and doing the job and doing it well. And as we all know, there's no two people alike. So when you have staff, you're meeting them where they're at, but you're never losing sight of the vision of what you're there to do as an organization. So the skills that I have that I've used or learned early on have just been a fairly easy transition. There's been bumps in the road, and that's why I've called you. We've had some good conversations about bumps in the road, and that's normal, and it's normal for growth to happen. But it's been a passion of mine, especially in the last 2 years, having workforce development and really working on soft skills and building a healthy internal organization.
Yeah, I agree with that. Since we grew up in the same family, our dad ran restaurants, and I always say that my dad was the comedian and mom was the straight man. And I know we both watched our dad try to manage and supervise his restaurants. He ran the food service at Blue Mountain in Pendleton. But I really do think that you and I work the leadership skills that our mom had. Mom really had the good skills. Mom was a social worker by trade, who got wrapped up in the restaurant business. I don't know about you, but I remember selling Christmas cards and March of Dimes and all that stuff with mom, and I think that's where we got that compassionate heart from.
And the stay with it. Like we did catering and set tables for hundreds of people. We made sandwiches for hundreds of firefighters during the summer.
That's right.
So, we've run a deep fryer to ordering food. So in the realm of multitasking, those were soft skills that we did before they were called soft skills.
Exactly. It was service. It
was customer service. So now, it's branded, and it doesn't matter. We've talked about generational millennials, Gen Zers. I have a Gen Zer working for me. And I laugh because one of the biggest things they say, which is true, is a lot more kids are, on the internet or doing pay to play sports. So they're not babysitting, they're not getting employment, because adults are fighting for the same kinds of employment that a 16-year-old kid is. So when they hit the workforce, when they're 21, we're having to work with them on some of those soft skills that they didn't learn just naturally like we did. And I know that's generational, but it's okay, because we used to say, well, we have to train people in the skills that they want, or they got a college education. But we know, even with a college education, that we're still coming back to people skills, changing your voice up, we're going to have the generational pieces that, like my staff asked me, I'm kind of embarrassed to ask you, but can you tell me how to run a fax machine?
Right.
And I was laughing because we still have a fax machine, but I didn't laugh when she asked, but I'm laughing on this talk. But we have the generational pieces, but at the same time, it really is a nicer way of starting to work with people on our onboarding practices. And if you notice, a lot of organizations, and I believe in this, will have second and third interviews. We used to do kind of a one and done, but now we're doing non-traditional, like we're going to have a first interview, and if we like them, we're going to have them come back and do non-traditional interviews, like tell us something you'd sell, so we get to know people, because our employees really are who they are after 5 o'clock at night also.
Yes, they are. Well, and what's really interesting is I was speaking with somebody at Microsoft last week, and I asked her, she wanted to work with me as a consultant, and I asked her if she wanted my resume, and she goes, at Microsoft, we don't even use resumes anymore. We just look at your LinkedIn page, which then forced me to clean up my LinkedIn page because I haven't updated it in a while. So I would encourage people to update their LinkedIn pages, because people are more and more looking at that. Also, we look at their Facebook pages.
Absolutely.
Because you're right. People are who they are after 5 o'clock. I'm going to remember that quote, by the way.
I know, exactly. But, and that's fun. That part is interesting. And I do think a lot of just societal, because basically with me in my leadership position, I always say I'm a sociologist at heart, which is probably what we said about Mom.
Yep.
A true study of people and societies, and
yes.
From all different sectors. But that study kind of puts us into our workforce culture. What are we going to do with that? Like, as a leader, I work really hard about inequality and not treating people differently. Just because I might have something more in common with one than the other, that doesn't mean I don't have humor, because I got a lot of humor.
Right.
But I work really hard at, if one staff tells me something, I don't share it just with another in confidence, and really holding information. I have a person and I have mentors. But I want them to come to work and feel like not only are they respected, but it could never slip in a conversation that I was caught in. And if they left this employment and they wanted to work somewhere else, I want them to say, I really love that person as my supervisor, and I liked working there.
Yes.
And maybe they can say the job wasn't a good fit, or maybe they wanted to further themselves in their career, but I want them to say, I had a boss I respected. I learned some things from her.
Sure.
And I'm going to take that on. And we talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
So I think those are key things. Like, how are you leading? Would you want you to be your leader?
Exactly. Yeah. Lead like you want to be leaded. Lead like you're led.
Led. Yes.
Yeah, led. It's that Pendleton education I got.
Exactly.
Oh, being a good leader that I know you are, what do you read leadership wise, and do you listen to podcasts, and how do you sharpen your axe?
Well, and I'm glad that you asked that, because this last year I was invited to be in a leadership academy, much like you had developed, because I worked with my organization here. And I, of course, have always liked, this isn't a book, but I've always liked the Myers-Briggs. I always liked personality test and anything on an understanding of interpersonal skills. We read the Leadership 2.0.
Yeah.
And I even brought it up yesterday, because there's a quiz in it, and then it talks about your agility, handling things that come by that you didn't think that were going to come by your desk. Or so I liked Leadership 2.0. Of course, I love, and you do too, Lee Cockrell's Creating Magic and all Lee's practices. And I think the thing that stands out there, and it always does with Lee, and I think about this all the time, I feel like I can call him Lee, is that whether you're the groundskeeper or you're the top management, I still carry a caseload. I did a transport for my staff today who had a conflict. I gave up my car today because it's a better car for a staff to go a longer distance. I mean, we're in a partnership where I'm gonna do what they're gonna do. So I think, and then set that expectation. We still have rules around that.
Exactly.
So I really like that he talks about that being key. No matter where you are, whether you're the new person or you've been around a long time, you treat the new person with the same respect, and you honor their position in the company.
I agree.
So I like that. So books on, I like Simon Sinek's What's Your Why?
Yeah.
Probably because I'm oftentimes, and I'm a fast talker like squirrel. So if I think about my why, even when I hit the road every day, or my staff get stuck in the mud, I call it getting stuck in the mud over a frustration or something that's just on them, or something in their personal life that's affecting maybe their professional. Then I have to go back to like, well, what's our why today?
Yeah.
Where are we trying to get with it that's the best for our clients?
Yeah.
And that reels people. I work in schools oftentimes too, so there's a lot of energy when it comes to trauma-based kids and trauma and situations. Should we suspend a kid? Should we keep a kid? Should we reduce a day? And I am often the one at the table like, okay, like what's our why? Is we want this child to graduate. So when we work around that why, how are we going to get there at 9 years old?
Right.
So we do that in the office too. Our why is to obtain housing, and they have a felony or they have poor credit. So what are we going to do to maneuver through the why to get to our goal?
Okay.
So Simon Sinek, Lee Cockrell, the Leadership 2.0, and then Josh Davies with the Center for Workforce Development out of Colorado, and the 7 A's, which is a lot of accountability. So interpersonal skills, accountability. Why are you there every day? I mean, studies have shown that the highest work performance is on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, with the lowest being Mondays and Fridays. And in our office, we found that like memes would kind of set that slide into Monday and it shows you dragging into Monday.
Right.
And then Friday, like zooming out of this week, we're out of here. And we've really slowed ourselves down. And on Monday, we just so happy to see you here. How you had a good weekend. You didn't have a good weekend, but we move on to like, what do we have going on today?
Right.
And Fridays, oftentimes the biggest areas of need are 2:00 on a Friday. Someone might be getting their water shut off, or, so we don't staff differently on Fridays. Of course, we have vacation time, and I allow self-care, vacation time, whatever you need at 100%. But we treat a week like a whole week of production, not a, gosh, it's Monday, dragging, and yay, I can't wait to get out of here on a Friday.
Right. It's really making it a 3-day week.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to do that. Being in a leadership position, it can be heavy. It can be heavy on your shoulders. Do you have mentors or people that you talk to?
I do. You're one. I do love calling to talk to you about and debriefing through things. And you didn't even have to pay me to say that. I do have a guy by the name of John Mishro, who is an administrator in Umatilla County, and now he's moved to the state of Washington and now taken a second job up by Olympia. Great guy. But when conflict was happening in large groups, he would always say, we're here for the kids. What do we do to be our best? And one of the things I say is, are you being your best you? I say that to my kids. Are you being your best you? Am I being my best me? Because I'm just over here trying to be my best me. There's no perfection. The other thing, he would always honor introducing people. And I think there's a value in introducing people around the room and their names.
Yeah.
And then if they're not performing, he would name it, and not specifically and individually, but at a larger level, to get the best fit for kids or the best fit for service for the money that we're paying. So he always inspired me. He always called meetings, and I really appreciated his energy and his drive, and I still do. And I'd call him up and debrief. We're both fast-paced movers, and we don't have time to sit in negative energy very long. And we laughingly say that doesn't mean rainbows and unicorns. It just means we have a time to be frustrated and a time to be solution-based and move on to the solution. Excellent. So John Mishra, and then Amy Williams, who works for Human Services here in the county, which she heads like about 5 different programs, school-based mental health being one of them, and our drug and alcohol programs, which is large in our county. But she's a nicer, soft-spoken person who leads at top levels, and I went to speak to the legislature with her, and she was so articulate. Some of my best mentors and leaders have been people that I've watched and learned from what they do, and then I emulate that.
Exactly.
So
What to do and what not to do.
yes.
Yeah.
And like, oh, like if, you know, if we could be more like Amy, I had to write a large grant, and I'm still learning great language and grants. And she just she came and helped me out. And she's like, no, I did it. And she went back, do you mind? Nope. And then she kind of looked it over and put in some other, you know, I think better language. And I was just like, you know, you're amazing. So, and then I am like the social, I have everybody's phone number, how to call everybody. So we're like a yin and a yang. She's like, do you got a number for so-and-so? And I'm like, you're amazing. And then she's the I say the brains.
Right.
She's the brains.
I can't believe you said a Conroy was social. I'm shocked, utterly stunned.
I know, we're fast talkers, multitaskers. Like, but I'm glad you can't see my desk right now because I have like 50 thoughts going on all over it.
One last thing.
So,
you know, I'm a big quote guy. I love quotes. You know, one of my favorite ones is Cockrell put out about when he worked for Bill Marriott, saying, you know, if you've got flies, you must like flies. That's my favorite quote right now, and I'm using that a lot. What's your leadership quote?
I'm going to go with traditional Maya Angelou because you just can't go wrong with her. People will forget what you said, and people will forget what you did, but they won't forget the way that you feel. And I say that I don't say it out loud a lot. If asked in a group, I do, but that's the way I practice. I mean, that's just, I can tell when I leave someone did this, and I'll even ask for validation if was this okay for you? Did this work out? Are you on board? Are you not on board? Because people aren't going to be motivated for change. Anyone, your employees, they're not going to be motivated for change if they don't feel buy-in.
Exactly.
And that doesn't mean people don't even have to agree. It doesn't mean they have to almost like it. But if your energy charged around the why, and you're like, are you on board around the why?
Yep.
You know, then and you're like, what do you think? Could we be doing it any different that would serve our population better? And if they can, I want to hear that. If they can't, then I think we're like, yes, then I believe in what we're doing. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, again, sometimes it's around the answer of that doesn't feel great.
Right.
But that's leading.
What's that?
But that's leading when you have to lead the whole spectrum of feeling and emotion.
Oh, agreed. From beginning to end. Thank you for joining with me. This was fun. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too. I loved it.
Yeah,
Can we do longer?
Well, we can. We'll do an extended series sometime. Part 2. Sibling Leadership, Part 2.
That's right. I love it.
This is Leaders Having Lunch with Jeff Conroy interviewing Jenni Galloway. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And remember, leadership begins with relationships. Bye-bye.